It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, everybody. I am Cathey Armillas.
And I am Marc Williams, and welcome everybody to What's About to Go Down. And I got to tell you, I'm so excited because I was standing in a room. Actually, I was sitting in a room while this guy, Craig Stanland, was standing in front of the room giving one of the most amazing speeches I had ever heard. Turns out that that speech was the making of a book, this amazing book called Blank Canvas. Oh, he's got an amazing story. And by he, I mean the motivational speaker. By he, I mean the coach. By he, wait, hold on. I love this title. The Reinvention Architect. Craig Stanland, thank you so much for being here. Craig is going to talk to us today as he gets ready to start writing his second book. This whole idea about how we are all on a golden treadmill. Craig, we're curious about that. But first, Blank Canvas, the interesting story. Tell us a little bit about your background, right? Your TED Talk, of course. You got to tell us a little bit about your background and your story and why you are the one who needs to talk to us about how we're all on this golden treadmill.
First off, Marc and Cathey, I'm so excited for this conversation. I loved our pre-conversation. I know we are going to get into it, and I can't wait to share the idea. But I think a little bit of backstory is really important to frame for context. So I'm going to take us back to September 30th, 2013. On that day, I owned 4 homes. I drove BMWs. I wore 5-figure watches. I was VIP status at some of the best restaurants in Greenwich, Connecticut, and Manhattan. I was married to an amazing, incredible woman. Life on the outside was absolutely incredible. It looked amazing. I had what everybody would say was it all. Then on October 1st, 2013, I had just walked into the office of my brand new job, and I saw that I had a missed voicemail. And this is what the voicemail said. Mr. Stanland, this is Special Agent McTiernan with the FBI. We are at your residence and have a warrant for your arrest. You need to call us and come home immediately, or we will issue a warrant with the federal marshals. That's the day I lost everything. For just under a year, I committed fraud against one of the tech giants, and it caught up to me on that day. I got so caught up in the lifestyle. I got so caught up in those homes, in the watches, in the cars, in that VIP status. I was on the golden treadmill, and I was going to do anything to keep myself on that golden treadmill. And that included committing the fraud that got me arrested by the FBI, landed me in prison for 2 years with 3 years of supervised release, and ordered to pay over $800,000 in restitution. I lost my career. I lost my marriage. I lost my homes. I lost any money I had. I lost my identity, who I am as a human being on this planet. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I lost the will to live. I started to plan when I was in prison how I would kill myself. And a chance visit from my best friend of over 30 years completely turned my life around into what I am doing now. And that is what my book is about. It starts with that voicemail. It brings you all the way to my rock bottom and how I reinvented from there. And that is, the TED Talk is actually a chapter of the book. I took a chapter and turned it into that TED Talk. So that was just that's a 40,000 foot view of my story.
Read it, watch it. And just by the way, the writing, just the pure writing, as an English teacher, I was a fan of how vivid it was, right? So you said,
as a speaking coach, Marc, I'm a fan of how he just told the story. FYI, I was like, voicemail. Oh my God, FBI at your house. Oh my God. Wow. I ordered the book. I haven't gotten it yet. So I'm super excited to read it. Yes.
Definitely got to read it.
Thank you both for that. The speaking coach and the English teacher, that makes me, I'm just so, that's incredible. Thank you. That's a win-win.
Totally, right?
Yes. But I got, but now on the topic of the second book, and you already introduced it, you said you were already caught up on this golden treadmill. And so my immediate thought, Cathey, and I don't know if you were thinking this, because we're always talking about how do you put something together and make it applicable for a larger audience. And as you tell us what is a very unique story that maybe some people might feel, I don't know if I can relate to that. How do we all relate to being on a golden treadmill?
Great question. And I know that my story is unique. And there's not a lot of, I know that I'm in the minority. There's not a lot of people who have gone to prison, even though the number's in the millions, I'm still in a minority. But I think where we really connect is our stories and the emotions behind those stories. And the golden treadmill is really just a conceptualization of our desire to pursue happiness, but we pursue the wrong things in the name of that happiness. We pursue pleasure and power. Pleasure being, the vacations, the cars, the watches, the dinners out, whatever it may be, materialism and things, and getting caught up in that. Power can be prestige and status and money. And that's when we get on that golden treadmill and we just chase these things for that happiness. And I'd go even beyond that. Really, I believe we all have this intrinsic desire to cultivate meaning in our lives. We want our experiences, which are in turn our lives, to mean something. We want fulfillment, but we're conditioned to pursue pleasure and power instead. And so we get on this treadmill and we run and we run and we run. And we get a little bit of enjoyment from it. We get a little dopamine kick when we swipe that, credit card. We get a little bit of that dopamine. When we get that promotion, we get a little bit of that dopamine. And we think that it's working. And it's a short-term hit after short-term hit, when really what we want is long-term meaning and fulfillment. And that's where I'm going with that treadmill analogy. And the way that I see it is there are three options with this treadmill. You never get off of it, and you end up dying with regret. Number two, life will knock you off the treadmill. That can be divorce, that could be a death, that could be a prison sentence. Whatever it may be, life knocks you off the treadmill. And that's an interesting option because then from there, you still have a choice to make. Am I going to do something with this, or am I going to stay in the burnt ashes of what was? That's a whole different conversation. And then number three, with the golden treadmill, is making the conscious and aware decision that what we're doing isn't working. We feel a success-sized hole in the middle of our chest, and we realize all the sprinting that we've been doing isn't going to fill that. And we slow the treadmill down, we eventually turn it off, and we get off of it, and we take the path to meaning.
Oh my God, so good, Craig.
Thank you.
No, it's really, really good. What I'd love to frame up for the audience really quick is, so I just want to understand your journey a little bit further. So you got out of prison, you were writing your book in prison. I heard that in the TED Talk, right? Like you were writing your book. You ended up writing the first book, The Blank Canvas, the one that English teacher Marc approves of. You gave the TED Talk, which speaker coach Cathey approves of. And now you're on this journey of writing this second book. And it's really just like would you say this is more of your journey too, to find your own meaning? Like this is like, you kind of wrote the first book and it was like, wow, this is my blank canvas. I'm going to do something different. You're now helping people with being a reinvention architect, Is it the next part of your journey too? I'm trying to frame this up a little bit because I have something to ask you.
This is absolutely the next part of my journey, but I would say that my meaning, I connected with that on the first book. My
Gotcha.
meaning is my love of writing, the craft of writing, the taking of an idea and alchemizing it in a way, in words that make it entertaining and make it accessible and make it executable for the reader. That is something that I really want to focus on. And my goal with this second book is, the first book, my goal was to help one person. That was my goal with the first book, was to help one person. My goal on the second book is still to help one person, but also I want to learn. And I'm unpacking some things that are very challenging for me. And because the way I'm looking at it is, if I don't learn along the way, how can I expect the reader to learn along the way as well? So I'm really challenging myself with this and going into some areas of my own life and into some studies that are really difficult for me. The second book is proving to be quite a challenge for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, one of the things that I love that you already have really well is you have this great concept. People love concept. People remember concepts. I personally love a good concept. So we're already there, Marc. I don't have to come up with some great concept. He already has one, the golden treadmill. And I think, Marc asking you that question, I'm glad you answered the way that you did. I'm sure he knew you knew the answer. We just wanted to hear you say it. And it was beautiful the way you answered. Because of course, that human experience of feeling like, oh my gosh, if I never get off. And, I think some of the supporting evidence to this concept and to your book and to maybe your next talk is really going to be like, when do we know we're on it? Like, when are we not on it? Like, if we're feeling happy, like it doesn't go without saying to just say everybody's on it, right? I mean, some people have found a way to step off of it. And then, I think there's just a lot of little nuances. So, and I'm sure that's going to be what's really part of the book, right?
It is. It's unpacking those nuances, because not everybody is on it by any stretch of the mean, and not everybody is on it. And it's getting crystal clear on those little nuances. And how do you identify? That's something that you said in there. And for me, that really is doing all of the things that we were told that we should do, going to the right school, getting the good grades, climbing that corporate ladder, getting the right job, living in the right neighborhood, all of these quote unquote right things, doing all of that, and yet feeling absolutely empty. That is one of the telltale signs that you're on the golden treadmill, is that you do all the things that you were told to do. Another analogy of that is, you've climbed the top of the mountain, you get to the top, and when you get up there, all the things that you were promised, all the happiness and the joy and the fulfillment aren't there.
Yeah.
And it's very easy at that point to then double down on your efforts to work even harder to get the next promotion. An addiction may come into play, an affair may come into play. It can go so many different areas, just trying to really, and here's something interesting with the golden treadmill. Not only are we, when we're on it, not only are we running towards something that we think is going to give us happiness, conversely, we're running away from something, and we're running away from ourselves and what we're truly meant to do and our calling. Because that's how I believe we cultivate meaning in our life, is by pursuing our calling. And we can have multiple callings, and our calling can be something small. It could be something huge. We shouldn't judge our callings for ourselves, and we shouldn't judge anybody else's callings. That's I hope that kind of unpacked that a little bit.
Yeah. I see a little bit of loss aversion at play in what you were saying there as well, of not knowing, like I in my mind, there's a lot of scenarios too, right? As humans, we have this condition of being human, and part of being human is waking up one day and being like, wow, I have the best life in the world. And waking up the next day, oh my God, my life is terrible. It's horrible. Nothing is right. And so even trying to get down to the granular level of like, okay, is that just a feeling that's passing, or are you in loss aversion mode where you're doubling down on something because you hope that it will continue to pay off, or will pay off,
Loss aversion. I also love the sunken cost fallacy.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for X amount of time. I've got to keep going. I've been working as a lawyer, an accountant for 20 years. I've got so much invested that I can't start something new.
Yeah.
And that belief that, we've got to burn it all to the ground to start over.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I love that. Let me ask you this question, Craig. What would be a great outcome for that one person? Is it, what would be like the outcome of the book, of the talk, of whatever? Like, what's the big outcome for the one person?
The big outcome would be for them to slow the treadmill down enough that they could step off of it and take the first step towards pursuing their calling. Just the first step. Because I think that first step is a doozy.
Yeah. Yes, it is, especially when it's going fast.
Right. That first step is a doozy. So that's really all I would want, is somebody to understand that there is another way and that they don't have to burn everything to the ground, that they can slow it down, that they can step off and to connect with that calling and to take that first step. That would be a real win for me.
Craig, help me out with this. I love, we talk about me being an English teacher. I love metaphors. I love this whole image of slowing down and stepping off of the golden treadmill. I'm also thinking about those people who need to read your book and listen to your next TED Talk, who may struggle with the metaphor and want to know exactly how do I slow down the treadmill? Exactly how do I get off? Like, that sounds like a great, abstract idea, but concretely, how do I do it? Because I think a lot of people are going to be looking for that.
Yeah, totally.
I love this question. And what I would say is get crystal clear on what you want in your life, outside of the material, outside of the things, outside of the job promotion. What do you want in your life? Is it freedom? Is it integrity? Is it peace? Then look at your life. Really look at the things that you do, the things that you purchase, the actions that you take, your day-to-day activities, and are they adding to you? Let's say you want peace. We'll use peace as an example. Is buying that $10,000 watch adding peace to your life? Or is that complicating your life because you now have a credit card bill that you're not quite sure how to pay for? I use that as an example because that was me. And that to really look at and to run everything through a filter of based on what it is that you want. And you start taking those things out of your life. You start subtracting. We subtract to add. And that's actually how we slow that treadmill down, is to say, I don't need that X amount dollar bottle of wine. I don't need those Jimmy Choos. I don't need that promotion, because actually what I really want is more time with my family. I want to connect with my spouse on a regular basis. And that new job means I'm going to be working 80 hours a week. Do you really want that job? That's how we start slowing it down. And those are tough things to analyze.
I love this. I'm glad you asked him that, Marc, because one of the things that you made me think of when you said this, Craig, is I love that you're boiling it down to one word. Because if you actually ask somebody that question, they might start telling you a whole thing. Well, I want to be happy and I want to live life and I want to be able to travel and I want to have money and it's like, no, boil it down to a word. What's the most important? Is it freedom? Is it adventure? Is it peace? Is it love? Have you been missing love your whole life and you want love? You want to give love? You want to get love from other people? And then asking that question makes it really powerful. Then it's like very simple. It seems like the obvious but simple thing of like, well, if I buy the watch, am I more adventurous or am I more free or am I more love? Like, I do think that you could ask a whole bunch of questions. And it's just, I don't know. I love the boiling it, forcing people to boil it down to the word that's most important to them.
I think that's so critically important. And I'm curious if you two have experienced this when you work with your clients and you say, what is it that you want? Well, I don't want to have this. I don't want to have that. And they list everything that they don't want. And it's so funny to listen and say, thank you so much. I hear you. You're very clear on all that, but you actually didn't answer the question.
Bring it back.
And it's just so confused. They're like, no, I really don't know. You actually didn't. What do you want? And you boil it down. And for me, I brought up peace because that was something that I wanted. I always said before I was arrested, I wanted freedom. And to me, peace and freedom are two sides of the same coin. And my clients primarily want that peace as well. They primarily want a little bit more simplicity in their lives. So just boiling it down to that one word and using that as the filter that we can then move forward with it's so empowering. And it's empowering, I think, because it is simple.
Yeah. I think it's a really good question that Marc asked you, because when I think about a book or a talk is a little different, because a talk you could leave really open-ended and it's totally fine. But nobody wants to read a 200-page book and then go, oh, he told me to get off the treadmill. How do I do that? Right. So what I can take away from this entire book, not saying that you were heading that route, right? But of course, we want to find that way, what's the creative way? I would be looking for that creative way to get people to recognize when they are actually on the treadmill and it's not just a feeling or or they haven't followed the wrong path or done to really, the same way that you want them to be crystal clear. I think I would want to have a crystal clear diagnosis of myself of I'm on a treadmill and I need to slow down or jump off, or whatever. Even the whole point about point number 2, life knocking you off. Do people get back on? I mean, right? Do people try to figure out a way to get back on? Or, so I feel like you have a lot of little micro scenarios that might be cool, but I feel like even just a really good assessment of a couple of questions that might clear it up. And you probably already have this in your head because you coach and you do this. So it's not in your writing, but I feel like it's a clear assessment of the awareness if you are on it or if you're not. Maybe you're running with one leg. I don't know. Maybe you're maybe sometimes you're on it and sometimes you're not. I don't know. There could be a lot of, I don't know. What do you think, Craig, Marc?
Well, so I think 2 things on there. I would love to address the people getting back on the treadmill, because I can actually speak to that really specifically because I am a member of a white collar support group. And our members are at any different phase of the process. Some are just indicted, some have been out for 20 years. But something that comes up so frequently is the idea of, I need to replace what I used to make. Otherwise, I won't be happy. And it's going to get right back on there.
Wow.
It's going to get right back on that treadmill. And there's, obviously a tremendous amount to unpack there. It's, I won't be happy unless I make X amount of money, which is not true whatsoever. And then something else I'd like to bring up, how we know we're on the treadmill, is we are Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. Day after day, day after day.
Same thing.
Living on autopilot. Just, the alarm goes off. Get up, you shower the same exact way. You take the same way to work. You do the same thing at work. You have the same conversations. You're doing the same projects, all of these things. And all the while, and it is a little bit of that feeling, but, just saying, is this all there is? That is a telltale sign that you're on the treadmill. If you find yourself saying, is this all there is? Is this all I'm meant to do? And wishing that things were different, but no action is being taken on it. And just 5 days a week, going to your 9 to 5. And I'm not knocking that, but if it's not bringing you joy, then it's something that you need to look at, and it's if you're in Groundhog Day, you're on the treadmill.
Wow. Does that mean, I'm curious, does that mean that part of assessing and figuring out if you're on the treadmill is taking a look at some of your routines?
Absolutely. I am a huge fan of routines. I have a 2+ hour morning routine that sets me up for writing for the day. It puts me in flow. It allows me to reach that state. I'm a huge fan of routines because that routine serves me. That routine also has moments where it becomes rote. And, that's very easy for a routine to do, but it no longer serves me. So then I have to change it. And so it's very important to look at our routines to see, one of the most powerful questions that we can ask ourselves. And I do this all throughout my morning. I take a cold shower every morning. It's the first thing I do. I make my bed and I jump in a nice cold shower every single morning. I've been doing it for 4 years. have missed very few days. But before I pull back that curtain and jump in, why am I doing this? When I sit down to meditate, why am I doing this? I do it when I'm stirring my coffee in the morning. Why am I doing this? And that just really sets that intention for that routine. It pulls out a little bit from that routine and understand why we're actually doing something. So that gives us that analysis into that routine. Is it serving me? Because there are times, honestly, I do some of this stuff every single day, sometimes with the cold shower. This morning, I asked myself, why am I doing this? And I said, it's because it's what I do. That's not a great reason.
That's a groundhog answer. A Groundhog Day answer.
Yes, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for pulling that right back. It is. That's a groundhog answer. And that was my answer. And I stopped and I said, wow, I gotta think about this a little bit, which was really stinky this morning because when I let the water run too much, it gets even colder.
Ooh.
So when I start
while
thinking,
you're contemplating it,
while
it's getting worse.
It's getting even worse.
No good.
Craig, I think that's maybe if the question of why am I doing this is the question to see if you're on the golden treadmill, maybe that's the golden question. I'm sorry, I have it all backwards. You know what I'm saying? That's the golden question, I think. Maybe that's the question that you ask and you call it.
You just gave me a gift.
Yeah. Well, you said it, and I just wrote it. Yeah, you didn't say golden question, but you said the question, and I was like, that's the golden question, though, because you narrowed down to that, and I think that's if you are going to describe it as the golden treadmill, I think that's the golden question.
Oh my God! Thank you for that gift.
Yeah.
Yes, I may have said it, but you connected the dots. And my brain is now doing that thing. Where it's going 9 million miles an hour, because that just brings me right back to the routines. It brings back to all the questions that we just talked. I was like, I can apply that to so many different areas.
Well, it was one thing that made me not feel, it was my brain trying to make clarity of it because I saw all these other some people might be not clear and be like, I don't think I'm on a treadmill, or I am on a treadmill, or and there, and I was just thinking of all the scenarios. And then when you started really narrowing it down to the questions, I was like, that's the golden question. So the golden question is a simple question. Why am I doing it? If you can answer it with something that feels meaningful, and going back to your words again, right? That feels like meaningful. What was it again? Like, what was the other word? Meaning and fulfillment, right?
Yep.
So if it feels like it has meaning and is fulfilling me, then awesome. Then it's not treadmill. It's not golden treadmill time. But if it doesn't, it's not. And so that helps me with awareness.
Well, I tell you what it helps me with. It helps me to realize that this is not just for people who are on this treadmill as the way you described it, right? It actually opens up, because one of my first concerns was, well, what if I don't feel like I'm on a treadmill? Maybe I don't need to listen to the reinvention architect on this. But the universal approach here, first, I think, is this one word thing, right? That's great, right? Because then systematically, after I figure out the one word, now I can start thinking about my routines. Whether I think I'm on a treadmill or not, everybody's got routines that they can look at. And then asking that golden question of, why am I doing this? And making sure that your answer is not, because that's the way I always do it. Because not only do individuals get caught up in that, but there's a lot of companies and organizations that get caught up in that. Well, why would we do that? Well, we've been doing it for the last 15 years. Well, that's not a reason why we do it. Maybe we need to slow down our golden treadmill, because that's what we're on right now. Ooh, can you imagine all kinds of people saying, I think we're on a golden treadmill.
Yeah.
So I just love the system of the one word, the recognition of habits and routines, and then asking that question, because I think it now makes it a very universal approach to your concept.
I love the way that you just put that together. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I love the fact that you brought corporations into that, because corporations are behemoths. And if anybody's on the golden treadmill, they are.
They're manufacturing them.
Right.
Yeah, totally. And I was just reading this fascinating thing a couple of weeks ago about how corporations don't typically have a longer lifespan than 100 years. I mean, just they don't. because of that reason. Just like a person, like most people don't live past 100 years. Neither do corporations. As good as they might be, as big as they might be, as relevant as they might be, and probably for the same reason. You know, some of the clarity that's coming up for me now also is making me think, Craig, that it doesn't have to also be, I mean, Marc is kind of making this clear with some of the things he's saying. It doesn't have to be the big, like, oh, there's this huge treadmill. It could be like, some days I go to the gym and I hop on a treadmill, and some days I don't. Like, you could be on a temporary golden treadmill, right? It could be a time period of your life. It doesn't have to be the big grand scheme of life itself. You could, just like when people have mental health episodes and they feel depressed for a time period, or, you know, people are suffering with things where they have like an episode, it could kind of be the same, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's an important delineation, that it doesn't have to be this all-encompassing big thing, that it could be very, definitely not permanent. It can be just temporary. It can be in one part of one's life, you know, specifically maybe with relationships, maybe with job.
Exactly.
You know, there's so many different factors in this, you know, romantic relationships, your friendly relationships, you know, where are we just doing the same thing over and over again? You know, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, you know, and just keeping going.
Yeah, I got another one for you. Food relationships. I love to just figure out the golden treadmill of the midnight snack. Stop doing it.
What is it? Why am I doing this? You have to ask yourself. You're sitting at the fridge. You have the fridge open. You're like, why am I doing this? It's definitely not bringing me peace or love or joy or happiness.
That's right.
And I think, I mean, tonight, I hope you do, when you raid that fridge at midnight, I hope my voice and Cathey's voice is in your ear saying, why am I doing this? Golden question. I hope that pops up. And you said something important in here that I would love to, it made me think of something, talking about that one word. Those are also can be referred to just as core values, is one way to look at those. But I think something important with that is to have them limited. Because if everything becomes this very important thing, then nothing's important.
Totally.
So to limit them, for me, I have 7.
Yeah. Well, I liked even the one, Craig, and, you know, and again, not that there's only one thing in your life, but if you boil it down to the most important thing, I think that I absolutely agree. There's it's kind of if anybody's seen the Lord of the Rings, you know, the one ring to rule them all. Yeah. Yes.
There is the one. And for me, it would be freedom. And I cheat a little bit with that, because that also means peace for me. So I kind of double dip on that, but that rules them all. I think there's subsets of that, right? Because mine might be adventure. That would be the first one I would go to. I want my life to be adventurous, but there's so many other subsets to that. But if I had to pick the one, and I would love to hear yours, Marc, since we always play games on our shows. Our game today is that Craig revealed his, I'm revealing mine. What's your one word? You know,
my one word is joyful. I want everything to make me and those around me to feel joyful. So then that's got me thinking, what did I do before I jumped on this conversation with you all that permeated that joyfulness that I want to have with myself and my family? You know, what am I doing even in this conversation to then experience that joyful feeling and to make you two feel joyful as well during this conversation? So that would be my word. Thank you.
I love it.
I love it. Can we now take that word, and when you go to the fridge tonight at midnight, is that midnight snack, is that joyful?
And maybe it is, like,
and maybe it is.
And sometimes it might not be. Yeah. You know what I like about this, Craig and Marc? Because when you said joyful, you also made me think about it in a different way, because you are the most joyful person I know. I don't know anybody as positive and full of joy and bringing joy to other people as you. You're at the top of my list there. So maybe even some of the things that you do in your life that feel hard, and in that moment, it's not joy. The thing isn't joyful. But if you go back to Craig's golden question, I love that. I do love that too. It's like, why am I doing this? The answer could definitely be to bring somebody joy. For instance, I'll give you like a scenario that ran through my head. I hate painting. I cannot stand it more than anything. I would rather lift heavy boxes, cannot stand painting. And, my son was like, he bought his first house and he had to paint the basement. And I was like, okay, I'll help you paint. So in that moment, the thing didn't bring me joy. But if I were to ask Craig's golden question, I were to say, why am I doing this? And if I were you, Marc, I'd be like, I'm bringing somebody else that I love joy by something that's not fun or joyful or easy for me. Right. So I just played a scenario on that.
Yes, I like that.
I think that just reframes. Painting didn't change. Painting is painting. It's putting a roller on a wall. It is quite monotonous, but it reframes the context behind it and gets the the intention. You're just very intentional about it. I'm not loving this right now, but I'm doing this with my son, for my son. That brings me joy. What a beautiful reframe.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marc.
Can I just say, because I love the way that sounds. Painting doesn't change, but the intention does. And that's what I heard you say. And that just permeated so well. And I don't know how much it can resonate with other people, but I thought that was very genius the way you said that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I think that's so critical though. That applies to so many things. Let's say, I love working out. I just love it because it brings me joy. It's just something I like doing. But if my goal behind that, my intention behind that was, let's say I'm in a lovely relationship, but let's say I was looking for, to attract somebody, that's going to put a whole, working out still the same. Doing bicep curls, that does not change. The energy behind that changes.
Totally. And for those of us that are married, Marc, we're just like, whatever. We have to really love working out, doing bicep curls. But to your point, that you can check your intention on these things, right? Some people absolutely get joy out of it, or you might get the joy out of the second or third thing that comes from it, right? Of, finding a new relationship, for me, if I could get my butt to the gym, I'm sure I would be happy. I don't like doing leg work, but I'm sure my soccer playing ability would be very happy somewhere down the line when I could be better. Right.
You just made me think of, I cannot remember where I heard this. I think it might've been on the Tim Ferriss podcast, but somebody was saying, it's very easy if I were to ask you, who's your favorite artist? It's very easy to say Picasso, Pollock, Rothko, to come up with some big name, Monet. Yeah. Who's your third favorite artist?
Yeah.
So what you were just saying made me think of that. What are the ancillary effects? What are the ripple effects? Like going beyond the second, the third, the fourth. Yeah. And there's a real richness and depth in that.
Yeah. Ooh, I do. I love that. I do love that. Because that makes you search for deeper meaning or deeper, I mean, do you only like one artist? No, you probably like several. So what are some of the other ones and why? And so, same thing is like, what? Yeah.
Oh, why is such a game changer?
Yeah.
I don't want to take us down like a whole rabbit hole, but gratitude is something I started practicing when I was in prison. And I didn't even realize that it was a thing because I didn't have access to the internet. It's just something that came inherently to me to say, I'm grateful I saw this morning's sunrise. And I realized that felt really good, but I started adding why to the practice. I'm grateful for this morning's coffee. Why am I grateful for this morning's coffee? Because I have the ability to brew coffee. I have the ability to buy the coffee. I have, whatever it may be, but that why, we could use that in so many different aspects to go so much deeper into the meaning behind something.
Well, and that's multiple golden questions then, right? Because in one area, you got the why am I doing this? And then the other one in the gratitude area, it's like, why? Why does this bring you joy? Why does this make you grateful? Woo! I love this.
And I think it also then begs the question of, like taking your scenario, Cathey, you talked about with the painting. It's why am I doing this? And it's what do I do next, right? Because sometimes people really get stuck on what is it that I do next? I know I don't want to do this. It goes back to what you were saying. We get very caught up in, well, I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and I don't want to do that, and I want to get off the treadmill, and I want to stop doing this, and I want to stop doing that. All right, but now what do you want to do? How do you get that clear idea about what the next step is?
I was going to say, let Cathey jump on that one.
All right, I'll take a hack at it, right? Well, one of the things that I think is coming up really clearly, Craig, is of course awareness, right? I had to start there, and I think that people can be so indecisive. Like they can be indecisive on like, well, am I actually happy? Am I not happy? No, I'm happy, or I'm not happy. Should I make this decision? Should I not make this decision? Yeah, that'll make me happy. No, I think that, one of our major human conditions is just, we're scattered. We're too many places. So these questions, the why, it really takes you down a path of clarity, of conciseness, of and so I don't know. One of the things so the first question might be I think the first step that you start at might be like, why am I doing this? And then, I don't know, like how, in my mind, what's the whole system, right? If the awareness is like, and I'm thinking about your book. So Craig, I'm thinking about like, if there's like 3 major sections, and one's awareness, one is like transitioning, and then one is practicing. I'm just making this up, right? Then there might be little chapters with each kind of big section. What is that middle? What is that? What is the transition? And then what is the practice? Now that I've learned to recognize the golden treadmill, whether that be the larger golden treadmill of life or the little smaller mini treadmills of day-to-day or scenarios or relationship-based or whatever, then how do ultimately, I feel like you're getting people to the practice space.
Absolutely. And I think, for me, like what's next on a very large scale would be really to go back to when you were a child and take a look at the single word that you came up with and the other words that flow from that, and see how they apply to the things that you love doing as a child. And I almost guarantee that they're going to sync up perfectly. Because when we were a kid, we wanted to do things for that feeling. We wanted to really do that thing for the feeling, and we did those things for that feeling. So in regards to what's next, I would look back to some of the things that you did as a child that the responsibilities of adulthood extinguished, and start bringing those back in to your life for no other purpose than to experiment with them, to see how you relate with them now, and to see if they bring that joy, meaning, and fulfillment. And that's something that I think is a really good way to identify that, what is next. For me, as an example, I had a childhood love of writing. I have now connected with that again. I have a childhood love of cars. I've always loved cars. My next step on that is going to be to buy something that I can restore from the ground up. To have that tactile feel, to get in there. I've never done that. I don't know how to, but to, just to explore something cheap, something kind of crappy. We want to be mindful about our experiments, but, to just kind of allow ourselves to go back to that childlike sense of awe and wonder.
And Craig, if you write about it, like if you blog about it, then you can double down and get twice the amount of joy out of that.
Oh, I totally do.
Because you said you love writing. So
when I say I love writing, I've written, I use Grammarly to write, and it tracks how many words you've written over time.
Yeah.
I've written 20 million words, which is the equivalent of 360 of my book.
Wow.
That's just me trying to alchemize my ideas.
Yeah.
And a lot of that does come out as blog posts. So I do get to double dip. A lot of the stuff that I'm putting out now on, like LinkedIn, those are me trying to get to the point where I want the book to be. So people are actually getting sneak peeks of the book without even really knowing it.
And they're part of your testing for the book and stuff too, right?
It is absolutely, it's some testing. And it's also, honestly, it's primarily just me trying to figure out what the heck I want to say and how I want to say it.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I love how much thought you put behind it too. Like I love that you're trying to alchemize it via writing and what we're doing today, talking through it. It's awesome. It gives you the ability to create a scenario before you actually write it down or go a certain direction.
It's very much how my brain is wired. So I'm very fortunate, I've kind of figured out how I work, and I work within those parameters. So it's, that's part of my process. I thought writing the second book, I'd be able to shortcut the process a little bit from the first one, because the first one I wrote 1 million words to get to those 52,000. And I'm realizing that's just part of it. That is how I get to the truth of the matter and the rawness of the matter, because that's where the good stuff is.
Yeah. Marc, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
I'm gonna put you back on the spot now, trying to put me on the spot. Oh, we're gonna play these games, Marc and I, and then poor Craig, or the person that's on our show, gets to be like we're all gonna play this game. No, Marc, I'm gonna ask you, because we have these conversations with people all the time. So I'm not gonna put Craig on the spot, but anybody's welcome to answer. Okay. One challenge I see with this book, with this concept, as great as it is, I feel like the marketer in me is like, oh, people will only go to this book when they're at their last space, and they don't feel like they need it ahead of time, even though we all here probably know that we all do. How do we get people to want that ahead of time? Like, what's the magic in there? What's the extra in there that makes people want it before? It's kind of like, and I'm just going to put this a little bluntly. It's kind of like people don't go to AA until they feel like, oh, my life is out of control. I need to go to AA, right? And so I don't want people to do that with your book. I want people to feel like they need to read it no matter what. So that's my question for you, Marc.
For me, my response to your question comes down to two words, and both of them were something that Craig said earlier. Purpose and happiness. And I believe that everybody is chasing purpose and everybody is chasing happiness. And I don't have to be in a rut or in a struggle or in a dark place to want to chase that. And so if the golden treadmill is about, fulfilling a purpose or chasing, more happiness in your life, well, then I think that is what makes it applicable and relatable and universal to other people.
But Marc, you're a book nerd. Like you, if you saw that, you would be like, I want to read that book, right? So, no, I love that, Marc. I'm just messing with you. I am.
No, but you're right. But
I do, but I still think what I said applies a little bit, because I do think that there are a certain segment of people that would go, oh, this joy will lead me to purpose and happiness. But what if I don't think I need that? Like. And not every book is for everybody. So I'm also not trying to say, Craig, that like your book should be like the book for everybody, even if we believe that it is, But what I would love to do is to not have you have such a good idea. Oh, Marc has something, but let me just finish. I would love for you to not have this great idea and then it gets lost in the midst of it sounds like a million other books. Marc, you just had your serious, I seriously have a good idea face.
Listen, I don't know, because you're right. I'm a book nerd, and as a motivational speaker, as a coach, we're just in an ambitious space, right?
Yeah.
Would it be true to say that many people are looking to find out how they can do things better in life? Probably not. That's the ambitious mind, isn't it? That's my
that's mind. That's the bridge I'm looking for, Craig. I don't know. The bridge I'm looking for is that, and this happens a lot when you work with clients, you already know this. The client's over here on the other side of the Grand Canyon, and you're on this side of the Grand Canyon, and you know what they need, but you have to have a pretty long bridge in order for them to get to what they need. Or maybe you're not on one side, you and the client are on one side and what they need is on the other side. some kind of analogy like that.
I in regards to the coaching, I like that. I use the alphabet. Let's say that I'm at M and my client is at A. Sure, eventually they'd like to get to M, but all they want to do is know how to get to B. So I have to go back to A and walk with them to go to B.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying about the book too, is exactly what I'm saying, right? It's like that has to be wired into it somehow, I think. The idea, the thought and everything. What does A look like? I
have to give that some really serious thought. And the book, so what I'm playing with and what I'm struggling with is I really want to, it's going to be a little bit memoirish, like my first book. So I want to do this in a little memoir because I love writing in the first person, but I want to put the reader in my shoes. So I want to kind of where I was before pre-choice Craig, when I was sprinting on that thing. And I really want to tell the story of that so that I can connect with the emotions. How that's going to make somebody go to Amazon and hit the buy button, I don't know. But I want to, I'm going to have to give that some thought. And the marketer in you might cringe at this. But I literally, when I say, I'm not even being altruistic, when I say to help one person, I could put 6 years of work in this. And if one person says it helped them and it gets lost, I'm good to go because I'm doing exactly what I love to do. And it actually informs the work that I do with my clients.
Yeah.
Hey, Craig, let me ask you this. This book, if I were to use the term roadmap, and I would say it's a roadmap to what would this book be a roadmap to? I would say my first gut is meaning. It's to meaning, because that's what I really firmly believe. I'm heavily influenced by Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning. And he says that everyone has a will to meaning in life, that we want our experiences in our life to mean something. And that resonates so much with me. So it would be a roadmap to meaning, but I'm going to have to come back to my reinvention architect. I would call it a blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is fine. I ask that because, Cathey, we always are trying to think about how do you expand your idea to touch and reach the most amount of people, right? And then sometimes I think about how people talk about a niche audience, right, or a target population, and how, listen, the greatest ideas don't necessarily apply to every single person on the planet. So, yes, you're right. Maybe not everybody's looking for more happiness or more meaning or more fulfillment or more effectiveness. But there's probably a lot of people out there who do realize it. With that said, I think Cathey's question is a great question for you to ponder moving forward, because yes, if I only think I should read this book because I'm running on this treadmill and I'm trying to get off, Cathey's right. Not everybody thinks they're running on a treadmill, right?
Yeah.
So I think that it is a really important question to ponder.
And also to Cathey's point, and to emphasize what you're saying, people may be squarely running on it and sprinting and be very offended if somebody were to say that they were on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go too far down the marketing route. I just wanted to bring it up, but I will say a couple of things. I mean, what I heard you say too about the meaning, and then you kind of rephrased it as blueprint, but it made me think of like a line or something of like, we're all running to something, but what are we running to, or what are we running for, or something. Anything that makes everybody feel included in something will be, it's like, okay, that gives me a little curiosity too. There's like a curious thing there. Like you're going to explain that, as opposed to just a concept that if I have to either love the concept or hate it. It reminds me of a guy that used to be in my Toastmasters club a long time ago. He was my very first mentor. I love him to death. And he talks about sailing way too much. And everybody's like, okay, we're so done with the sailing metaphors. And if you're not a sailor, if you're a sailor, you probably love his stuff, right? But, a lot of people a lot of people, and not that obviously the treadmill is an easy one. Most people hate working out. Let's just be honest. But most people can also recognize that the treadmill is not about working out. The treadmill is being stuck on something. Anyway, I just love that we had the conversation, Craig, and that you have it planted in your head, because I think also when you're writing a book or when you're writing a TED Talk, you have to think about the step that the person that you want to reach, at what point in the story do you want them to step into it? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I actually can't wait for this to go live, because I'm going to have my pen and paper and be taking copious amounts of notes.
I love it. I love it. It's awesome. This is so great. Okay. As a final thing, really quick, because I think, I think Marc, we've cleared up a lot of things. Like, I love the golden question. I love that. I love, Craig, some of the things you said, even the importance of the why, because the why is in the golden question, but the why is also the why to the joy, the meaning, the fulfillment. I don't know. To me, some of these pieces are starting to become more clear. I feel like we did a lot of work, but I'd love to hear what everybody got out of it. I'll start with you, Marc, and then I'll ask Craig.
For me, I got a system, and it was really important for me to get that, because when we started the conversation, the golden treadmill was about a state of being. And once we clarified that everybody was in this state, or whomever is in this state, my brain was, okay, well, how do we get out of this state if we've identified it as a state we don't want people in? So then getting to the system of the one word, the identifying the routines, and then asking that question was real helpful for me in this process. Yeah,
I love that. Same.
This conversation for me has allowed me to crystallize the idea on a much deeper level. And when I have conversations like this, when I sit down to write the following day, those days are brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to tomorrow morning, because both of you have unlocked and moved so much stuff around for me. So I want to thank you both for that. But I love, the golden question, that's just brilliant. I love the way that you threw out as examples, but they were brilliant, the 3 different sections. Mm-hmm. That really, really clicked in my brain. I thought that was lovely, and I'm going to run with that and see where it takes me. So I thank you for that. And then I would also say marketing. It's a little bit of my Achilles heel. I am a little bit, I'll be quite frank, stubborn in my ways of I like writing. This is what I would, the thing is, I would put this book, I would work like a lunatic on this book regardless. So that's part of it, but I do have to give thought to that. So you really have opened up my mind with that question to think a little bit differently. And it's really important, because it's also it's not only just for book sales, it's going to inform the direction of the book.
Yeah, totally.
So
it's awesome. Well, Craig, I'm really happy to hear all that. For me, I think a lot of everything that you just said is so good. I loved the one word right out of the gate. When you got us down to a word, I was like, oh, I could ask myself about that. How is that creating adventure in my life? And then thinking about why am I doing this? And is that leading to the adventure? And even some of the, when you talked about having 7 core values, adventure is really important to me, but there's values underneath there too. So it's just being really clear on the things that actually bring you the joy, the meaning, and the fulfillment, right? So
yeah, I think when you get really clear on that one word, the other ones flow naturally.
Yeah.
And they're all interwoven. They support each other. They stand alone really well, but when they work in conjunction, it brings you to that one word and really it sets it afire.
Yeah, I love that. Ooh, I love this. I'm super excited about your book, whether it's called The Golden Treadmill or that is the nugget that's buried in there and it's something else. I also would encourage you, just really quick on a side note, I've been thinking a lot about my next book that I'm writing, and I've been toying with the idea of just naming it with something with one word, so that might be something to think about as well. Could be a word. And then you could have what the subtitle underneath could be the explanation of it. Like if Marc and I were to write a book, it'd probably be called Speak, or something like that. Right? I think it might be, or, or something like that, or Word. I think I want to name, I was thinking about writing a speaking book called Word. So
sounds like we just got lost back in our 80s. Word.
Yeah, word. Exactly.
That's very powerful. There's something to be said for a one-word title is very powerful.
Yeah. So
I like that a lot.
So I would encourage you to think about that as well. I think your conversation naturally got us to that space. You want people to get to one word. What if you named your book with one word? So
as an English teacher, that would be symbolic of the meaning behind the message.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be me walking my walk.
Yeah. Exactly. That you actually named it. I love that. Well, I'm glad this is where we landed. Just, to tell people like, where's the best place to find out about you, Craig, and to see your TED Talk? Do you have a website? Like, tell us where we can follow you, find you, connect with you. Absolutely.
So the website is craigstanland.com. The TED Talk is titled How I Learned My Greatest Worth in Federal Prison. So you Google that, it'll bring you to YouTube or the TED homepage. My book is available on Amazon, Blank Canvas, How I Reinvented My Life After Prison. And I am on LinkedIn 6 days a week, posting content that I hope, adds value and is also a preview to the book.
Yep. So if you want to find a preview to Craig's book, go to LinkedIn and connect with him there for sure. Check out his website. Definitely watch his TED Talk. I saw it. It's awesome. And his book, which I haven't read yet, but Marc has, and I am on my way to. Craig, I'm super excited about your next book. I can't wait to see what you name it. I can't wait to see the sections. I can't wait to see how you market it, all the things that we talked about. So thanks for having this conversation. To anybody watching, if you want to be on the show with Marc and I, just go to our website. It's about to go down show.com. Reach out to us or let us know if you know somebody that you're like, hey, you need to be talking to Marc and Cathey. But because of today, I can definitely say with 100% surety that with Craig, it went down.